All right, today we are talking about potassium. It's a mineral that most of us don't really think about, especially compared to its famous cousin, sodium. But it turns out potassium is a secret superstar for our health, with some serious power to fight back against a huge health problem that's affecting people all over the world. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll get a handle on this silent global issue. Then, we'll meet our hero, potassium, and see why it's like the body's own spark plug. After that, we'll dig into what the science, straight from the World Health Organization, has to say, find out the magic number you should be aiming for, and finally, get super practical about how to get more potassium on your plate. Okay, first things first, let's set the stage. Why are we even dedicating all this time to one single mineral? Well, because it's tied directly to a massive worldwide health crisis that's hiding in plain sight. To really get a feel for the stakes here, let me ask you a question. According to the World Health Organization, what's the single biggest risk factor for death on the entire planet? Just think about that. It's behind almost 1 out of every 8 deaths. And the answer is elevated blood pressure, hypertension. You've probably heard it called the silent killer, right? And that's because you can have it for years with zero symptoms. But as you can see from this number, its impact is anything but silent. It is a huge, deadly problem. And check this out. This is why it's so dangerous. High blood pressure isn't just its own thing. It's the main engine driving 2 of the world's biggest killers. The WHO figures it's a contributing factor in a mind-boggling 62% of all strokes and almost half of all coronary heart disease. Wow. Okay, so you've got this giant global problem. Where on earth does potassium fit in? Well, let's bring in the hero of our story, this essential mineral that, it turns out, is the power source for your whole system. I absolutely love this analogy because it just clicks. Seriously, think of potassium as the spark plug in your body's engine. It's that little electrical kick that lets your nerves send signals, allows your muscles to move, and most importantly, keeps your heart beating in that steady, reliable rhythm. No spark, no go. Now, for the more official, scientific version, the World Health Organization calls it an essential nutrient. Its main jobs? Managing the fluid levels inside all of our cells, keeping our electrolytes in balance, and just making sure our cells can do their jobs correctly. I mean, without it, the fundamental machinery of our bodies just starts to sputter. And this is where it gets really fascinating. You have to look at potassium's relationship with sodium. Picture a seesaw for your blood pressure. On one end, we've got sodium, and we get a ton of it from processed foods. That's constantly pushing your blood pressure up. But on the other end, you've got potassium, actively pushing back, helping your blood vessels to chill out and relax. It's this constant battle, and for most of us, let's be honest, sodium is winning. But hey, don't just take my word for any of this. Let's look at the cold, hard evidence from the most respected public health authority on the planet. This document right here, this is the real deal. It's a huge, game-changing guideline published by the WHO back in 2012. What they did was gather and analyze all the best scientific studies on potassium, and what they found was pretty incredible. So what did all that research show? Well, they looked at 16 different studies focusing on people who already had high blood pressure. See that first bar? That's their systolic blood pressure, the top number, before they made any changes. Now look at the second bar. After they upped their potassium intake, their blood pressure dropped by an average of over 5 points. Now you might be thinking, is 5 points a big deal? Oh yeah, in cardiology, that is a very meaningful improvement. So what does that 5-point drop actually mean for your life? Here's the payoff. It translates to a 21% lower risk of having a stroke. Let that sink in. 21%. That's not just some tiny statistical blip. That's a massive, potentially life-saving impact. So the WHO's conclusions were just overwhelmingly positive. Let's just run through the highlights. 1. Yep, more potassium definitely lowers blood pressure. 2. It does it without messing with other things like your cholesterol or your kidneys, assuming you're healthy. 3. It seems to help pretty much everyone, no matter where they started. And 4, and this is crucial, it's totally safe when you get it the natural way, from food. Okay, so all of this science leads us to the big practical question, right? What are we supposed to do with this information? What's the target we should be shooting for every day? And here it is, the magic number. The World Health Organization recommends that adults should get at least 3,510 milligrams of potassium a day. Let's just call it 3,510. That is the number that the science points to for helping lower blood pressure and cutting the risk of heart disease. But here's the kicker. This is the big problem. When you look at populations around the globe, almost nobody is getting that much. We are not even close. There's this massive gap between what we know is good for us and what we're actually putting on our plates. All right, so let's get practical. Let's figure this out. How in the world do you actually get to that 3,510 milligram goal just with food? Is it even possible? The WHO actually included this super helpful chart in the report, and honestly, it's a little surprising. You might think bananas are the king of potassium, and they're good, but look at the top of the list. Beans and peas are absolute powerhouses. We're talking 1,300 milligrams in a 100-gram serving. Nuts and leafy greens like spinach are also fantastic sources. And this just shows you how simple it can be. We're not talking about some crazy, restrictive diet. Just think about small swaps. What if you threw a big handful of spinach into your morning smoothie? Or for that afternoon snack, instead of chips, you had a banana and some almonds. At dinner, maybe swap the white rice for a side of black beans. These little things, they add up really, really fast. So look, if you take away just one thing today, let it be this. Being healthy isn't only about avoiding the bad stuff, like too much salt. It's just as important to add in the good stuff, and making sure you get enough potassium is one of the most powerful, scientifically proven things you can do for your heart. It's all about finding that balance. Which really just leaves us with one final question for you to think about. We called potassium the body's spark plug at the beginning of all this. So the question is, are you giving your engine enough of that essential spark to really run its best?